Hello there, my friends, and welcome to Flourish Writers. It's a joy for Jennifer Cookert and myself, Mindy Kiker, to connect with you here for another installment of our strategies to sustain your writing life. Here we are in the month of November, and we're going to be chatting about your planning personality. Now, why is this so important? It's because eventually you're going to either make progress or not make progress in your writing life based on what happens day in and day out. And part of what makes that either work or not work is your approach to planning. It's a big part of what we work on in the academy to know ourselves and to find strategic ways to work with our strengths and to love ourselves for our weaknesses and figure out the best way forward for you. From a writer's journal, this writer says, being intentional about planning this year, I've learned more about myself than I ever imagined. I thought I couldn't get to the writing because I didn't have the skill or the time, but I realize it's more of a mindset and heart issue. When you said that procrastination is not a time management issue, the light bulb turned on. If you haven't caught the October installment, that's where we chat a lot about procrastination. Super helpful conversation. With planning and reflection built into the academy, I became aware of my reluctance to commit to a timeline. I was afraid of not meeting my goals. I was afraid of being seen as incompetent if I tried and failed. I know this is resonating with many of you. We've all been there if we're not there right now. This writer continues, I realized that this year I've been building the foundation of a sustainable writing life, which has meant that I've not made progress on the project I hoped, but I'm approaching my writing more prayerfully and professionally. And she has made progress. It's just not as blazing as she had hoped, but she knows a lot more about herself than she did at the beginning. And this is the scripture that she's been holding on to this year. Isaiah 30, verse 18. The Lord is still waiting to show his favor to you so he can show you his marvelous love. He waits to be gracious to you. He sits on his throne ready to show mercy to you. For Yahweh is the Lord of justice, faithful to keep his promises. Overwhelmed with bliss are all who will entwine their hearts in him, waiting for him to help them. And this is part of her affirmation that she speaks over herself this year. And I wanted to share it as an affirmation over you as well. This is a great starting place. It's just knowing that we are on the path with God and we don't have to have all the strength needed, all the capabilities needed, but we just need to keep showing up in obedience and trusting that the Lord will meet us where we're at. Most of us have mixed feelings about planning and goal setting. So I'm just setting that up here right at the front, because even titling this with the word planning in it, I knew was a risk because we have a lot of strong reactions about it. So let's dig into some of that. David Allen says, you can do anything, but not everything. So this is where planning comes in. Like, we just have to choose. We all have a finite amount of time in a day and in our lives, and we want to use that well. We want to be showing up, doing the things, dedicating this precious resource of time in the places that it's going to make the biggest difference. So what's your planning personality? This is what we're going to examine, and it's going to make a big difference for you and how you engage with your writing life. Are you a pantser or a plotter? Now you say, hey, wait a second. I thought those terms were related to what kind of writer you are. If you're a pantser, you write by the seat of your pants. If you're a plotter, you like to plan things out more. But these terms also apply to how our relationship with planning. Some people are more pantsers. They want to just put in the time, put in the work, and they don't really have a clear plan. Whereas others do a lot of planning. They may not ever get to the writing because they get stuck in planning. What kind are you? This uh, presentation is to help you get in touch with what's been happening in your life and figure out how to cooperate with the way that you naturally show up. Because you'll hear when somebody says, I'm a pantser, but even pantsers need a plan. So even somebody who shows up and writes by the seat of their pants always has some kind of plan in place. Like even at the very basic level, they have decided which project to work on, right? You can't show up and write on 3 or 4 different projects simultaneously. No, you've got to decide, okay, in this block of time or in this day or in this week or in this month, what's going to be my focus? Because distraction and multitasking robs us of our time. It robs us of our efficiency. So what kind of planner are you? Sometimes we think that planning only looks one way and we try to copy someone else. We don't really spend time getting to know ourselves. And we think, well, I've seen all the really smart people say that I need to use this tool or that tool, or I'm going to show you some very simple tools that might work very well for you. You've got to cooperate with the way you're designed. So the starting place is just that prayer that says, I don't want to fight against myself or think that I'm no good at this. Maybe you take a historical view and maybe indeed this has been an area of challenge for you in the past. But moving forward, God, I really want to cooperate with the way that you designed me, because you designed me well. You love me, and actually you really like me too. The reality is that no matter your personality, there are going to be parts of the writing life that are not your favorite, and we cannot run away from those hard parts. It's just not going to work. Here's what another writer says. As this year closes and next year starts, I will continue dividing my time between learning the technical aspects of the writing life, like Canva and MailerLite, and writing. See, here's the reality, friends. The writing life is not just writing. Preparing a special meal for friends and family is not just cooking. There's also the cleaning and the setting up the table and organizing the event to begin with, inviting people and making sure they know the day and time to come. So there's all these other aspects besides the thing, the main thing that we're doing. There's other things that support it. This writer says, thank you both for all that you do. Though I'm still very much a beginner and have much to learn, I honestly can't believe how far I've come and how much I've learned since January. This is a new Academy student. So fun. This is what we see year after year. I am making progress. It may not be the things that I was expecting, but I'm learning and I'm starting to understand the scope of what I've gotten myself into. And I have people who are there for me. So what do planning personalities look like? Let's get some examples here. So you can begin to place yourself within this realm and find the best path for you. Our dear friend Christine Bailey wrote a beautiful book called The Kindred Life. And she jumped on the podcast with us and described just her writing process and how it worked for her. So she was busy raising children and farming the land, blogging, podcasting, and then she wanted to add writing a book to her plate. Someone reached out to her and offered her a contract. My goodness me. So she couldn't say no. I mean, she could, but she says, I didn't write every day. Instead, I wrote the manuscript in huge bursts during at-home writing retreats when my husband took the kids on outings to give me a day or two to do a deep dive into the writing. Okay. So maybe I'm the kind of person who just wants to have hours. Now, if you want hours, you're going to have to make hours. You have to find those. Maybe you're the kind of person who can work in the gaps. That's awesome. But you've got to find those gaps. They're not going to find you. Christine continues, during the first retreat, I had to overcome fear. After all the planning, preparation, and promises, could I write it? I set a goal of 15,000 words in 2 days. Are you insane, Christine? Well, I guess this worked for her. They didn't need to be great words, but they needed to come out to help me break through my fear. So Christine is listening to that voice in her own heart saying, Christine, how is this going to work for you? It's not going to look exactly like everyone else because the circumstances of my life are different than the circumstances of your life. I didn't want to compromise my kindred life to write a book about the kindred life. I didn't want to lose connection with the earth to write a book about connecting with the earth. See, even the process needed to be a kindred process for her. I sat down and did the work, but God wrote the story through me. So she really encountered a sacred process in the writing. So that's what we're looking for when we're trying to understand our planning personality. It's got to fit with who you are. How did God make you? Without goals and action steps, plans never become more than a dream. And a lot of us show up here in the writing life as high creatives. I've got lots of great ideas. I've got so many hopes. I can just see it, but I don't know how to get there. And that's a lot of what we do at Flourish Writers, is to help you figure out how to get there. And so one of the things that we support is coming with your vision and turning that vision into goals and turning those goals into action steps. So a vision might be, this year I'll focus on using the ideas and talent God has given me for storytelling to develop and write stories. That's amazing. Like a writer clarified that for herself. She came to the academy. She said, this is what I'm going to do. Okay, that's amazing. That's so thrilling to admit and to choose and to say, yes, I'm going to do it. But then it has to become something you can work on. When you open up your calendar for week 1, there has to be something that you can actually do in the calendar. You can't do a vision as a daily action step. So this writer said, okay, I'm going to learn how to write a novel. I've got my novel writing course. One of the first things I'm going to do in the academy is to finish that course. I'm going to analyze similar novels. So I know what I'm trying to write. I'm going to plan out my novel and I'm going to begin a first draft. But even these goals are big. These still have to be broken down into action steps, don't they? So that plan for the year is a big plan. It's a big vision that is translated into goals. Where am I going? It's like you're getting your map organized so that your car knows what route to take. But if the goals don't become action steps, then you're not going to have anything on a daily basis that's small enough to take action on. And that's one of the big things that can stop us. No matter our planning personality, somehow we have got to take this big dream that we have and turn it into something that I can put in my calendar today. And I'm going to talk about getting it in the calendar because there's a lot of different ways that can look as well. So even if you're thinking, I'm not a planner, this isn't going to work for me. Listen, my friend, this may be the very first time that this makes sense for you, because I'm going to help you connect with who you are and stop fighting against who you are. So here's the simple principle. We're going to talk about making it functional in just a moment. And I'm sure there's going to be something that connects with you, no matter how frustrating this has been for you in the past. So stick with me. So your goal for the year is to learn to write a novel by completing the novel writing course. But then you need a goal for the quarter, so that the quarter is just the first 3 months. I'm going to complete lesson 3 in the novel writing course. And then my action step, the thing that I can put in my calendar, says I'm going to incorporate the instructor's feedback on my assignments. So that's where I can start, because I haven't done that yet. And I know that I need to do that before I can write the next assignment. So let's translate all of this into what planning personalities look like. How do they show up? We saw Christine showing up in these deep dive bursts of 15,000 words in 2 days. You know, that to some of you, that sounds insane. To others of you, that sounds amazing. What are some other options? What could this look like? I wanted to introduce you to Christina Woodall of Wander Ponder Learning. She is such an alternative thinker, super creative, and wants to use the principles of Wander Ponder in her own life. It's not just a mindful approach that she teaches to others. She wants to live this way too. So she created My Name Day Life. This is how she plans. And she came up with these super fun word plays on each day This is actually a product that she's going to be selling. So you can be on the lookout for that. Send her an email, find her on Instagram and say, I want this if this connects with you. Wednesday. Where do I sense the wind blowing? The path wends and winds me toward what? And what am I going to do for my own wander ponder? Now, so she created these pages for herself. She has 7 days of the week and she just prints it out. She writes the date on there. She keeps track of how she's feeling today. And then she has non-name day list things. But this name day was her way of saying, every Wednesday, I'm going to focus on these types of things. And she's in touch with nature, which is very important to her. And this way, she is planning in a way that fits with her values and her approach. Here's an example of Thursday. What am I thirsty for? Am I dehydrated in any parts of my life? Who needs a relation sip? I mean, this is so fun, so clever. I will slow soak or mist. And then she sets some special goals for herself related to the theme for that day. What does she do on Saturday? It's sitter day. What can I notice while being still? Who can her child hang with? Let's sit something out today. So that's either something that she is not going to choose to do or something that she's going to choose to do special that is super relaxing and refreshing. Because this is the day that she sharpens the saw, to use Franklin Covey language. So that's a fun example of what a planning personality can choose to get organized. Okay, because we've got to be organized in some way, but there are so many different ways to come at this. So here, then now some of you looked at this and gasped. You want to shelter your eyes and run away. But this is what worked for one child of mine. When he blocked his time and when he cooperates with the plan, he gets so much done because this child had a tendency to pick things up, work on it for a while, and not get to a good completion point before he would stop and move on. There was tons of context switching and getting lost in the process and getting way off track. And he'd get to the end of the day so frustrated. He'd worked for hours and hours, but had nothing to show for it. So this kind of schedule helped him to know it's a Google Calendar. So it would pop up on his calendar and tell him what it was time to do. And if he cooperated with it, it totally transformed his days. Okay. Ken Walker, one of our speakers in our recent conference, says, when I started tracking my time, productivity increased, because there is a principle of planning and keeping track of your plans, which says we count what matters. When we count what matters, it makes a huge difference. So Ken made himself this simple little spreadsheet. Now, some of you are saying, I don't like spreadsheets. When I see columns and rows, my brain freezes and my vision blurs. That's okay. I've got some ideas for you too. But Ken made this super simple spreadsheet where he tracks, what did I do for the hours of my day and how much time did I spend on it? He was really battling to have a profitable writing life. When he started doing this, friends, his writer business became profitable. Isn't that incredible? NaNoWriMo has many different styles of trackers out there. That's the national novel writing month, but it's really a thing that you can be part of all year long. And they've got different word count trackers because we're counting what matters. Maybe word count is what helps you. Some people like to count hours and time. Some people like to count words. What is it for you? How is it going to click for you? Just keep trying different things. Don't give up, because there is something. I promise there is something. So this is one of the NaNoWriMo spreadsheets. And it has little built-in formulas, so it adds things up and calculates for you. And this is super encouraging. Now, isn't one of the problems with goals that it can also be discouraging if you fail to meet them? Yes, that is true. We're going to talk about that too in just a sec. All right, here's one student who plans her time blocks in Outlook. She prints out the week's schedule. So there she's kind of laid out her block so she knows what's going on at different times, plots in, all the stuff from her life. Doctor's appointments, academy stuff, writing stuff, church stuff, all the things, taking the husband to the airport. And then she said, then I record what really happened in the Writer's Life Planning Guide. So this is one of our weekly action plan pages. And she says, when it comes time to review the month, I need to be able to see what really happened. And that's in the guide. So this is a good example of how she's using some resources within the academy, but tweaking them to work for her. I love the different visual. We have access to so many different visual ways to see information now. And some people adore Trello. So you keep looking, you will find a layout that visually works for you. And it might be paper and pen. It might be something online. Don't think that online things are always better. That is not the case. Sometimes it's paper and pen that works best for you. But you just don't want to get distracted by the tool. You want the tool to help you achieve the goal, which is keeping organized. But take a look at Trello.com if you're not familiar with that. And here, Jody Brandon has an article on specifically using Trello to have a book publishing plan. So regardless of our personality type, we all need our people, because keeping going, keeping encouraged, keeping motivated. Why do we plan? We plan to make progress. We plan to get stuff done. There is such a social part of that we cannot do it alone. That's why we are here together in community at Flourish Writers. Marvita did such a great interview. She chatted with us a while back that Flourish Writers connected her with a tribe of writers who cheer her on. It made her courageous to take action on releasing a new holiday product that worked wonders for her. It's amazing. Look at this Flourish Writers pair. They met in the academy. They meet up at 5 a.m. every morning during NaNoWriMo, the November, writing month. And they got together in person. Amazing. So they've really been with each other during the writing process for months on end in those early morning hours. You've got to find your people. Look, this is when academy students help each other out. Jill's talking about Sonia's book release. Sandy's sharing about Sonia's book release. Jenny and Angie paired up to do this. Look how many Flourish writers there are in that picture. So fun. Julie shares about Jenny and Angie's project. These are all connections made inside the academy. You've got to find your people and then cultivate those friendships. You're there for them. They're there for you. And you are supporting each other, because the greater goal is all of us getting out the message that God has on our hearts. It's all for the kingdom. We received this note in the email. Thank you for creating Flourish Writers. I know it's a work of the Spirit to create something like this in this present age. I enjoy the academy. The content, lessons, and speakers are all far more helpful than other and more expensive writing things I've paid for. But here's the key difference that I love the most, and what I believe makes flourish, is that you invite the Holy Spirit into what you are doing. You acknowledge your and our dependence on God and the importance of writing for His glory. It's so refreshing being part of something where prayer and dependence on the Lord is encouraged. And at the end of the day, that's what our planning personality is all about. It is seeking God. It is not giving up. It's not getting distracted or despairing because things haven't worked in the past. It is that hope that rises up again and says, no, I can do this because God is with me. Jeremiah 31 verses 3 and 4 says, I, God, will always love you. That's why I've been so patient and kind to draw you to my heart. You are precious to me, and I will build you up again. And so that's my encouragement to you, that as you look at all these different, the practical side of the writing life, the practical side of how to get organized and how to make a plan that is flexible enough that when it doesn't work out, you don't become disillusioned and throw it all out. Also knowing that just life is life. And sometimes we set out to do something, it takes longer than we thought, it's harder than we thought, but we don't give up on the dream. We keep searching for practical ways to turn that into something that we can take action on. And that's why we're here cheering you on, because we believe, we are confident, unshakable confidence that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. That is our prayer and our hope. And thank you for joining us here. We pray that you find those good, practical ways of working with your personality, with your stage of life, and finding a method that works for you. Bye for now.